Part 1. The Opening Hook. The private dining room at Aurelio's smelled of truffle oil and expensive wine, but Marcus Chen barely noticed. He was too busy watching Isabelle Laurent twirl her fork through handmade pasta, her perfectly manicured fingers catching the soft golden light from the Venetian sconces above their table. "You're not listening to me," Isabelle said, her French accent making even her complaints sound seductive. She leaned forward, the neckline of her emerald dress shifting to reveal the diamond necklace he'd bought her last month. "I said the photographer wants to shoot in Santorini next week. You'll come, won't you?" Marcus reached for his bourbon, the ice clinking against crystal. "I have the board meeting on Thursday. The merger." The merger," Isabelle interrupted, rolling her eyes. "Always business with you, Marcus. When was the last time we actually enjoyed ourselves?" He wanted to point out that this $800 dinner in Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant seemed like enjoyment to him, but he'd learned that arguing with Isabelle only prolonged conversations he'd rather avoid. Instead, he smiled that practiced smile, the one that had closed $100 million deals, and squeezed her hand across the table. "You're right," he said. "Let me see what I can move around." The lie came easily. It always did now. Marcus Chen had built an empire from nothing. At 37, he controlled Chen Industries, a tech conglomerate worth $3 billion. He had the penthouse, the cars, the vacation homes, and for the past 8 months he'd had Isabelle, 24 years old, legs for days, and a social media following that made her relevant in ways his wife could never understand. His wife. The thought of Emily sent an uncomfortable twist through his chest, but he pushed it away like he'd been doing for months. Emily was safe at home, 7 months pregnant with their first child, probably reading one of those parenting books she loved or working on designs for the nursery. Reliable, predictable, boring. Isabelle was excitement. She was the reward for all those years of grinding, building, sacrificing. Wasn't he entitled to some happiness? "I need to use the restroom," Isabelle announced, standing in one fluid motion that turned heads across the restaurant. She always turned heads. Marcus watched her glide away, then pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from Emily. No messages. He frowned. Emily never called multiple times unless something was wrong. His thumb hovered over her name, guilt gnawing at him, but then a text from Isabelle's manager appeared about some brand deal, and he got distracted scrolling through the details. When he finally looked up, he froze. Through the frosted glass partition that separated their private room from the main dining area, he could see into one of the restaurant's most prestigious booths, the corner table that overlooked the city, the one they only gave to the truly powerful. And there, illuminated by candlelight, was Emily. His pregnant wife sat across from Damian Wolf. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Damian Wolf, the Damian Wolf, CEO of Wolf Global Holdings, billionaire, corporate raider, and Marcus's most ruthless competitor. The man who tried to hostile take over Chen Industries 2 years ago and had vowed to destroy Marcus after the failed attempt. What the hell was Emily doing with him? What would you do if you saw your spouse dining with your worst enemy? Drop your reaction in the comments below. Marcus's mind raced as he watched them through the glass. Emily wore a dress he'd never seen before, deep burgundy, elegant, nothing like the comfortable clothes she usually preferred. Her auburn hair was styled in soft waves around her face, and even from this distance, he could see she was smiling. Smiling? When was the last time she'd smiled at him like that? Damian leaned forward, saying something that made Emily laugh, her hand resting protectively on her rounded belly. The gesture sent a spike of possessive fury through Marcus's chest. That was his child, his wife. "Is everything all right, Mr. Chen?" Marcus jerked his attention to the server who'd appeared beside him. "What?" "You looked concerned, sir. Can I get you anything?" "I'm fine," Marcus snapped, then caught himself. "Actually, yes, who's sitting at table 7, the corner booth. The server glanced toward the main dining room. "I believe that's Mr. Wolf's private reservation, sir. Is there a problem?" "No, no problem." Marcus's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. The server retreated, and Marcus sat frozen, watching his two worlds collide in the most impossible way. How did Emily even know Damien Wolf? She'd never mentioned him, never showed any interest in Marcus's business rivalries. Emily was a freelance graphic designer who worked from home, who spent her days creating logos for small businesses and preparing for their baby. She lived in a completely different world from men like Damien Wolf. Didn't she? Marcus thought about the woman he'd married 5 years ago. Emily Hartwell had been 25, fresh out of art school, full of dreams about opening her own design studio. She'd been at a coffee shop sketching when he'd walked in for a meeting, and something about her concentration, the way she bit her lower lip when she worked, had captivated him. She'd been different from the women in his world, real, genuine. She didn't care about his money. In fact, she'd insisted on paying for their first 3 dates. She'd made him laugh, made him feel like Marcus Chen the person, not Marcus Chen the CEO. He'd fallen fast and hard, proposed within 6 months, married her in a small ceremony that his business associates had called quaint, with barely disguised disdain. For the first few years, it had been good, great, even. Emily had supported his insane work hours, had been there for every triumph and setback, had believed in him when a bad quarter made him doubt himself. But somewhere along the way, things had shifted. Marcus had grown Chen Industries from a $100 million startup to a billion-dollar empire. The hours got longer, the pressure intensified, the social obligations multiplied. Emily had tried to keep up at first, attending galas and networking events, but she was never comfortable in that world. She'd make small talk with the other wives and girlfriends, but he could see the exhaustion in her eyes by the end of each night. "These aren't your people," she'd told him once after a particularly grueling charity auction. "And honestly, Marcus, I'm not sure they're yours either." He dismissed her concerns. She didn't understand what it took to operate at his level. The connections, the appearances, the constant performance of success. When she'd gotten pregnant 6 months ago, she'd essentially withdrawn from his professional life entirely. Morning sickness had been brutal for her. She'd lost weight before she started gaining it, had spent weeks barely able to keep food down. Marcus had been sympathetic, but also secretly relieved. It was easier not to worry about bringing her to events, not to see the judgment in other people's eyes when she wore the wrong thing or said something too honest. And then Isabel had happened. They'd met at a product launch party. She'd been hired as a brand ambassador, and she'd approached him directly, bold and confident. "You're Marcus Chen," she'd said. "I've been wanting to meet you." The affair had started within 2 weeks. Marcus had told himself it was just physical, just a release from the pressure. But 8 months later, he was spending most evenings with Isabel, making excuses to Emily about late meetings and business dinners. Emily never questioned him, never pushed, she just accepted it, which made it easier to keep doing it. But now, watching her laugh with Damien Wolf, Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. When had Emily started looking so beautiful? When had she started wearing dresses like that? When had she started having dinner with billionaire CEOs? Isabel slid back into her seat, oblivious to Marcus's turmoil. "You should see the line for the ladies' room. Ridiculous." She picked up her wine glass. "Where were we? Oh yes, Santorini. I was thinking we could. Marcus, are you even listening?" He wasn't. He was watching Damien Wolf reach across the table and place something in Emily's hand. A business card. She looked at it, then back at Damien and nodded. What the hell was happening? Marcus made a decision. "Isabel, I need to step out for a moment." "Now, our entrees are about to." "I'll be right back." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His heart hammered as he moved toward the partition door, trying to appear casual even as his world tilted on its axis. He'd confront them. demand to know what Emily was doing with his enemy, reclaim control of this situation. But as he reached for the door handle, Damien Wolfe stood, helping Emily to her feet with a gentleness that made Marcus's vision blur red. They were leaving. Marcus watched through the glass as Damien placed a hand on the small of Emily's back, his pregnant wife's back, and guided her toward the restaurant's main exit. Emily looked up at Damien and said something that made him smile, a genuine smile that Marcus had never seen on the usually cold CEO's face. Then they were gone. Marcus stood frozen, his hand still on the door handle, his mind reeling. Should he follow them? Confront them outside? But what would he say? What right did he have to be angry when Isabel was sitting in his private dining room wearing diamonds he'd bought her? The hypocrisy hit him like a physical blow. "Sir," a different server approached, "is everything all right?" "The woman who just left with Mr. Wolfe," Marcus said, his voice rough. "Did you see her before? Has she been here with him before?" The server looked uncomfortable. I couldn't say, sir. We respect all our guests' privacy." "I'm asking you a direct question." "Marcus," Isabel appeared beside him, her expression annoyed. "What are you doing? Our food is getting cold." He wanted to scream at her that his wife, his pregnant wife, had just had dinner with Damien Wolfe, that nothing made sense anymore, that the careful compartments he'd built for his life were collapsing. Instead, he forced a smile. "Sorry, thought I saw someone I knew." They returned to their table, but Marcus couldn't taste the $200 steak when it arrived. He mechanically cut and chewed, nodding at appropriate moments as Isabel talked about her upcoming Fashion Week invitations, but his mind was miles away. Emily and Damien Wolfe. How long had this been going on? Was it an affair? The thought made him sick and furious. Emily wouldn't do that. She was loyal, faithful, honest to a fault. That was who she was. But then, wasn't that what every cheating spouse thought about their partner? And he would know. His phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Are you coming home tonight? We need to talk." "We need to talk." 4 words that sent ice through his veins. She knew about Isabel. Somehow she knew. And this dinner with Wolfe was her revenge, her way of showing him she had options too. No, that didn't make sense. Emily wasn't vindictive. She was Emily. "Late meeting," he texted back. "Don't wait up." The lie felt heavier than usual. Have you ever discovered something that completely changed how you saw someone you loved? Share your story below. You're not alone. Isabel was watching him with narrowed eyes. "You're being weird tonight." "Just stressed about the merger." "You're always stressed about something." She sighed dramatically. "Sometimes I wonder if you even want to be here with me." The irony would have been funny if Marcus wasn't spiraling. "Of course I do." But as he said it, he realized he wasn't sure anymore what he wanted. The life that had seemed so perfect this morning, the empire, the model girlfriend, the uncomplicated escape from domesticity, now felt hollow. And Emily, his plain, pregnant, boring wife, had somehow had dinner with one of the most powerful men in the world. Nothing made sense. After they finished their meal, Marcus walked Isabel to her car, a white Mercedes SUV he'd bought her for her birthday. She kissed him good night, already distracted by her phone, and drove off without looking back. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, the November wind cutting through his Tom Ford suit. He should go home, talk to Emily, demand answers. Instead, he pulled out his phone and called Jack Reeves, his head of security. "Jack, I need you to look into something for me." "Sure thing, boss. What do you need?" Marcus hesitated, then plunged forward. "I need to know if my wife has had any contact with Damien Wolfe. Meetings, calls, anything." Silence on the other end. Then, "Your wife, sir." "Yes, Emily, I need to know." He stopped, hearing how paranoid he sounded. "Just look into it discreetly. I don't want her to know." "Understood. I'll have something for you by morning." Marcus ended the call and climbed into his Bentley. His driver, Thomas, met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Home, sir." Marcus thought about Emily waiting for him, wanting to talk. He thought about that text message, those 4 ominous words. "No, take me to the penthouse." The penthouse was his retreat, a place Emily had never even seen. He kept it for late nights, for privacy, for Isabel. It felt safer than facing whatever waited for him at home. As they drove through Manhattan's glittering streets, Marcus stared out the window and tried to remember when everything had gotten so complicated. When had he become the kind of man who spied on his pregnant wife? When had he started choosing a model's company over his own home? When had he stopped being the man Emily had fallen in love with? The questions followed him all the way to the penthouse, where he poured himself a scotch and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city that had once seemed like his kingdom. Tonight it just looked cold. Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in the darkness of his penthouse, drinking expensive scotch that tasted like ash, replaying the scene at the restaurant over and over in his mind. Emily's smile, Damien's hand on her back, the easy intimacy between them. By 6 a.m., he'd convinced himself he was overreacting. There had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe Emily was hearing Damien for some baby-related investment advice. Maybe it was a coincidence they'd ended up at the same restaurant. But he'd never believed in coincidences. His phone rang just after 7. Jack Reeves. "Talk to me," Marcus said. "You're not going to like this." Jack's voice was grim. "Your wife has been meeting with Damien Wolfe for the past 6 weeks, twice a week, regular as clockwork. Lunch meetings mostly. 3 were at his office." Marcus's hand tightened on his glass. 6 weeks. "That's not all. Wolfe's been sending her gifts. Flowers mostly. And he set up a business account under her name at Hemisphere Bank. I couldn't access the details without triggering alarms, but there's definitely money involved." The room spun. Marcus set down his glass before he could throw it. "A business account," he repeated flatly. "Yes, sir, opened 3 weeks ago." 6 weeks of meetings, gifts, money, all behind his back. "Anything else?" Jack hesitated. "There's been talk in Wolf's circle, speculation about a major move he's planning, something big, but no one knows the details." Marcus's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Wolfe was plotting something, and somehow Emily was part of it. But why? What could Damien Wolfe possibly want from Emily? Revenge. The word hit him like a bullet. Wolfe had sworn to destroy Marcus after the failed takeover. What better revenge than seducing his wife? Getting close to her, using her, maybe even turning her against him. "Keep digging," Marcus ordered. "I want to know every move Wolfe makes, every conversation, everything." "Sir, maybe you should just talk to your wife." "Just do what I'm paying you for, Jack." He ended the call and immediately pulled up his home security app. The cameras he'd installed throughout their brownstone for safety now served a different purpose. He scrolled through yesterday's footage, watching Emily move through their home. There she was in the kitchen, making tea, her hand on her belly in that protective way she'd developed. Then in her office, working on her computer. Later, getting dressed for dinner, that burgundy dress she'd worn to meet Wolfe. She'd spent almost an hour on her hair and makeup. For another man. Marcus watched her leave the house at 6:30, saw her smile at something on her phone before getting into an Uber. She looked happy, excited even. When was the last time she'd looked that way for him? His phone buzzed with a text from Isabel. "Miss you already. Tonight." He stared at the message, then deleted it without responding. Instead, he called his office. "Sarah, clear my schedule for today. I need to handle something personal." His assistant sounded surprised. Marcus never took personal days, but she agreed immediately. Marcus showered, changed into fresh clothes he kept at the penthouse, and made a decision. He would go home, confront Emily directly, demand the truth. But when he arrived at their brownstone in Brooklyn Heights just before 9 a.m., Emily wasn't there. The house was empty, pristine. Their housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, no relation, was vacuuming the living room. "Mr. Chen," she looked startled, "I didn't expect you home today." "Where's Emily?" "Mrs. Chen left about an hour ago. She had an appointment," she said. "An appointment? With Wolf, probably." Marcus climbed the stairs to their bedroom, each step feeling heavier than the last. Their room looked the same as always, Emily's side of the bed neatly made, her nightstand stacked with parenting books and prenatal vitamins. His side was still unmade from 2 days ago, the last time he'd slept here. He moved to her closet, not sure what he was looking for. Evidence. Proof. Something to confirm or deny the terrible scenarios playing out in his head. Emily's clothes were modest, practical. Maternity jeans, soft sweaters, nothing like the dress she'd worn last night. He pushed hangers aside until he found it, the burgundy dress already hung back up. Designer label, expensive. He'd never seen it before because he'd never bought it for her. Had Wolf? Marcus's jaw clenched. He checked the pockets, nothing. Then he noticed her jewelry box on the dresser, opened it. Her wedding ring sat inside. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. His wife was out there, pregnant with his child, meeting with his enemy, not wearing her wedding ring. What's the one thing that would make you question everything in your relationship? Let us know in the comments. Marcus sat on the edge of their bed, his head in his hands. This was his fault. All of it. He'd pushed Emily away, had chosen Isabel over his own marriage, had convinced himself that Emily wouldn't notice, wouldn't care, would just accept his neglect. But she had noticed. And now she was with Damian Wolf. His phone rang, unknown number. "Yes. Mr. Chen, this is Detective Sarah Morrison with the NYPD. I'm calling about a matter concerning your wife, Emily Chen." Marcus's blood froze. "What happened? Is she hurt, the baby?" "No, sir, nothing like that. We need to ask you some questions about your financial accounts. There's been some unusual activity that's raised flags." "What kind of activity?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come down to the precinct?" Marcus's mind raced. "This is about my wife." "Among other things, how soon can you be here?" 20 minutes later, Marcus sat across from Detective Morrison in a stark interview room. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of face that gave nothing away. "Mr. Chen, are you aware that someone has been moving large sums of money out of your joint accounts?" Marcus blinked. "What? No, how much?" "Over the past month, approximately $2 million has been transferred to various offshore accounts. The bank flagged it as potential fraud, but the transfers were made with proper authorization codes." "I didn't authorize any transfers." "No, sir, your wife did." The room tilted. "Emily." Detective Morrison slid a folder across the table. "These are the transaction records, all signed off by Emily Chen. The money went to shell corporations we're still tracing, but there are connections to several entities linked to Wolf Global Holdings." Marcus stared at the papers, his wife's digital signature on document after document. $2 million to Damian Wolf's companies. "We're investigating whether this constitutes fraud or if Mrs. Chen had legal access to these funds. As joint account holders, the law is complicated, but we wanted to bring this to your attention." "She's stealing from me," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "My own wife is stealing from me and funneling money to my competitor." "We don't know that for certain yet, Mr. Chen, but we do need to ask, is your marriage in trouble? Any reason Mrs. Chen might feel justified in taking these funds?" Marcus thought about Isabel, about the hundreds of thousands he'd spent on her over the past 8 months. The jewelry, the car, the apartment he was considering buying her. "No," he lied, "everything's fine." Detective Morrison's expression suggested she didn't believe him. "Well, we'll continue investigating. In the meantime, I'd suggest you speak with your wife, and maybe get a lawyer." Marcus left the precinct in a daze. Emily was stealing from him. Emily, who'd never cared about money, who'd always insisted on contributing equally even when he made millions more than her. Emily, who'd cried when he tried to buy her an expensive engagement ring and had insisted on something simpler. That Emily was stealing $2 million and giving it to Damian Wolf. Unless Wolf was using her, manipulating her somehow. That made more sense than Emily suddenly becoming a thief. Wolf was notorious for finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. What was Emily's weakness? Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through their text history. Her messages were mundane, reminders about doctor appointments, questions about his schedule, updates about the nursery. His responses were terse, distracted. The last real conversation they'd had was 3 weeks ago, when she'd asked if he wanted to feel the baby kick. "Can't right now, in a meeting." He'd never followed up. His phone buzzed, Emily calling. Marcus stared at her name on the screen, his thumb hovering over the answer button. What would he even say? Confront her about the money, about Wolf, confess about Isabel. He let it ring through to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a text, "Please come home, it's important." Marcus typed back, "Can't, at the office." Another lie. He sat in his car outside the precinct, watching the city move around him, and realized he didn't know his wife anymore. Or maybe he'd never really known her at all. Maybe that was the problem. Marcus spent the day following Emily. He knew it was wrong, knew it made him the worst kind of hypocrite, but he couldn't stop himself. He needed to understand what was happening. She led him on a winding path through Manhattan, first to a medical clinic, the Ob-Gyn, he assumed, though he felt a twist of shame that he didn't know her appointment schedule. Then to a coffee shop in the West Village where she met with a woman Marcus didn't recognize. They talked for an hour, the woman occasionally reaching across the table to squeeze Emily's hand in what looked like comfort or encouragement. Then, at 2 p.m., Emily entered the Wolf Global Holdings building. Marcus parked across the street, watching the gleaming tower of steel and glass. Wolf's fortress. He'd been inside once before during the takeover negotiations and had vowed never to return. Now his pregnant wife was walking in like she belonged there. She emerged 90 minutes later, but she wasn't alone. Damian Wolf walked beside her, his hand again on her back, that proprietary gesture that made Marcus want to storm across the street and put his fist through Wolf's perfect face. They climbed into Wolf's town car, a Rolls-Royce because of course, and pulled away from the curb. Marcus followed, staying 3 cars back, his heart hammering. The Rolls-Royce drove to Central Park, stopping at Bethesda Fountain. Marcus parked and watched as Wolf and Emily walked together along the path, talking intently. At one point, Emily stopped, her hand going to her belly, and Wolf immediately reached out to steady her. Marcus was out of his car before he consciously made the decision, striding across the park toward them. Emily saw him first, her eyes widened, color draining from her face. "Marcus." Damian Wolf turned, and a slow smile spread across his face, the smile of a man who'd been expecting this. "Chen," Wolf said smoothly, "what a coincidence." "Coincidence?" Marcus's voice was ice. "Like my wife having secret meetings with my biggest competitor is a coincidence." "Marcus, please," Emily said, stepping between them. "This isn't what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been sneaking around with this bastard for weeks. I think you've been stealing from our accounts to give him money. I think." "You think a lot of things without knowing anything," Emily interrupted, and there was steel in her voice he'd never heard before. "When was the last time you came to one of my doctor appointments, Marcus? When was the last time you asked how I was feeling, or if I needed anything, or if our baby was okay?" Don't change the subject. I'm not changing anything. I'm pointing out that you don't get to show up now, after months of being absent from our marriage, and act like the betrayed husband. Wolf watched them with obvious interest, his expression unreadable. Stay out of this, Marcus snapped at him. I'm not in it, Wolf replied calmly. This is between you and your wife. Then why the hell have you been meeting with her? Why is she in your office? Why are you, he stopped, unable to say the rest. Why are you touching her like that? Emily took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice was quieter. Damien is helping me with something I should have done a long time ago. Helping you steal from me. It's not stealing when it's my money too, Emily said. That joint account, I put money into it from my work. I have just as much right to it as you do. That $2 million is a fraction of what you've spent on Isabel Lauren in the past 8 months, Emily finished. The world stopped. Marcus stared at his wife, at the calm certainty on her face, and realized she knew. Had known, probably for months. Emily, don't, she held up her hand. I've known about your affair since June. I hired a private investigator after you missed our anniversary dinner for the 3rd year in a row. I know about the penthouse, the jewelry, the vacation you're planning to Santorini. I know everything. Have you ever had to confront a painful truth you'd been avoiding? How did you find the courage? Share below. Marcus felt like the ground was crumbling beneath his feet. If you knew, why didn't you say anything? Because I kept hoping you'd end it, that you'd remember what we had, what we were building, that our baby would be enough to bring you back. Her voice cracked, but you just kept choosing her, over and over again. So you ran to him, Marcus pointed at Wolf. My enemy, you're trying to hurt me. Not everything is about you, Emily said, and the sadness in her eyes was worse than anger would have been. Damien isn't helping me hurt you. He's helping me leave you. The words hit like a physical blow. Leave me. I'm filing for divorce, Marcus. The papers will be served next week. You can't, Emily, you're pregnant with my child. Yes, and our child deserves better than growing up watching their father choose another woman over their mother every single day. She placed both hands on her belly. I deserve better too. Marcus looked at Wolf, who'd remained silent through the entire exchange. And you, what's your angle in all this? Finally found a way to destroy me. For the first time, Wolf's expression shifted to something that might have been discussed. Believe it or not, Chen, not everything is a business maneuver. Emily came to me because she needed legal help and didn't trust anyone in your circle. I helped her because she deserved help. That's all. Legal help with what? Protecting herself and her baby, Wolf said. From what a divorce from you could become. Emily stepped closer to Marcus, and he could see tears in her eyes now. I loved you. For 5 years, I loved you with everything I had. I supported your dreams, your ambitions, even when they took you further and further from me. I never asked you to choose between your career and our marriage, but I did ask you to remember I existed. I never forgot. You forgot everything that mattered. A tear slid down her cheek. You forgot our anniversary. You forgot my birthday. You've missed every doctor's appointment. You don't know that our baby is a girl. You don't know that I had complications at 20 weeks and was hospitalized for 3 days. You don't know that I cried myself to sleep for 2 months straight because the man I married became a stranger. Each word was a knife. Marcus tried to speak, but nothing came out. We're having a daughter, Emily continued, and I will not let her grow up thinking this is what love looks like. I won't let her believe that she should accept neglect and betrayal because her father normalized it. Emily, please, we can fix this. How? She met his eyes and he saw the truth there. She was done, completely, utterly done. Will you end things with Isabel? Will you come home every night? Will you actually be a husband and a father? Marcus opened his mouth to say yes, to promise anything, but Wolf spoke first. Don't make promises you won't keep, Chen. It's kinder to let her go. And Marcus realized with horrible clarity that Wolf was right. Even now, even facing the complete destruction of his marriage, he couldn't honestly promise to end things with Isabel. Couldn't promise to change his life, his priorities, his carefully constructed empire of success and status. Because that would mean admitting he'd been wrong. Admitting he destroyed the best thing in his life for something that didn't matter at all. Emily saw it on his face, his inability to promise, to commit, to choose her. She nodded slowly, like he'd confirmed something she'd already known. "Goodbye, Marcus." She turned and walked away, Damien Wolf at her side, leaving Marcus standing alone by Bethesda Fountain as the November wind cut through his expensive suit. He'd built an empire and lost his world. The next 3 days were a blur. Marcus moved through his life like a ghost, present but not there, going through the motions while his mind replayed Emily's words on an endless loop. "Our baby is a girl. I had complications and was hospitalized. I cried myself to sleep for 2 months. He hadn't known any of it, hadn't asked, hadn't cared enough to notice. The divorce papers arrived on Friday, delivered to his office by a process server who looked sympathetic. Marcus stared at the documents, at Emily's signature already in place, and felt nothing. The numbness was complete. His lawyer, Gerald Hastings, sat across from him, reviewing the papers with a grim expression. "She's not asking for much," Gerald said. "Considering your net worth, this is remarkably generous. She wants the brownstone, child support, and only $15 million in the settlement." Only $15 million. Marcus would have laughed if he could remember how. "She's also requesting full custody, with you having supervised visitation rights until the child is 3 years old." That penetrated the fog. "Supervised. She thinks I'm a danger to my own daughter." "Not a danger, but given your lifestyle choices and extended absences, she's concerned about your ability to provide primary care." Marcus thought about the penthouse, about Isabel, about the fact that he hadn't even known Emily was hospitalized. "She's not wrong," he said quietly. Gerald looked surprised. "Marcus, you don't have to accept this. We can fight. Contest custody, push back on the settlement amount, make things difficult." "No." "But—" "I said no." Marcus stood and walked to the window of his corner office, looking out at Manhattan. From here he could see half the city, see the empire he'd built. It felt like nothing. His phone buzzed. Isabel again. She'd been calling constantly since he'd stopped responding to her texts. He declined the call. "There's something else," Gerald said carefully. "The private investigator Emily hired. He documented everything. The affair, the money spent on Isabel, the time you've been away from home. If this goes to court, it won't look good for you." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that Emily has built an airtight case. And more than that, she has public sympathy on her side. Pregnant wife, absent husband, mistress who's young enough to be his daughter. Isabel is 24. Exactly. The optics are terrible. If you fight this, the media will have a field day. Your reputation, your business relationships, everything you've built could be at risk." Marcus turned from the window. "So I'm supposed to just give up, except that I've lost everything." "You haven't lost everything. You still have Chen Industries, your wealth, your position." "I've lost the only things that actually mattered." The admission hung in the air. Gerald gathered his papers. "I'll review the agreement and send you my recommendations. But Marcus, for what it's worth, I think you should consider accepting her terms. Fighting this will only make everything worse." After Gerald left, Marcus sat alone in his office as the sun set over the city. His assistant had gone home. The building was quiet. He pulled up his phone and, without letting himself overthink it, scrolled to the security footage from his home. The app still worked. Emily hadn't changed the passwords yet. He found yesterday's footage and watched Emily move through the house that used to be theirs. She was in the nursery they'd started designing together, though he'd stopped participating months ago. The walls were painted a soft lavender now, with hand-drawn murals of clouds and stars. Emily sat in the rocking chair they'd picked out, or rather, that she'd picked out while he'd been on a conference call, her hands on her belly, singing softly. He couldn't hear the words, but he could see the love on her face. She was singing to their daughter. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. Something that had been cracking for days finally shattered completely. He'd missed everything, the nursery coming together, the songs Emily sang, the moment their daughter started kicking, the hospitalization that could have meant he lost them both. He'd missed it all because he'd been with Isabel, because he'd been building an empire that meant nothing if he had no one to share it with. His phone rang. This time he answered. "What, Isabel?" "Finally, I've been trying to reach you for days. Where have you been?" "Dealing with my life falling apart." "Don't be dramatic, listen. I need you to talk to that photographer about Santorini. He's being difficult about the dates." "I'm not going to Santorini." "Silence, then, what do you mean?" "I mean I'm not going. I can't do this anymore, Isabel." "Do what?" "Any of it I'm ending it." "You're breaking up with me." She sounded more offended than hurt. "Because of what? Your boring wife finally grew a spine." Marcus felt anger flash through the numbness. "Don't talk about her." "Oh, please. You've done nothing but complain about her for months. How she doesn't understand you, how she's let herself go, how she's not exciting." "I was wrong," Marcus interrupted. "About all of it. Emily is," his voice caught. "She's everything I should have valued, everything I threw away." "So what, you're going to run back to her, play happy family?" "She won't take me back. She's divorcing me, and she's right to do it." "Then why end things with me? We can still." "Because I don't love you," Marcus said, and the truth of it was clear. "I never did. You were just an escape, a way to avoid dealing with the fact that I was failing at the one thing that actually mattered." "You're such a bastard." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "I really am." Isabel hung up on him. Marcus set his phone down and put his head in his hands. He'd lost Emily, lost his daughter before she was even born, lost any chance at the family he'd taken for granted. When did you realize you'd been taking the most important things in your life for granted? Share your wake-up call moment below. The office door opened. Marcus looked up to see Jack Reeves standing there, looking uncomfortable. "Sir, I have that additional information you requested, about Mr. Wolf and your wife." "I don't want it anymore." "Sir, whatever Wolf and Emily are doing, it's none of my business. I shouldn't have asked you to spy on her in the first place." Jack shifted his weight. "Actually, sir, I think you'll want to hear this. It's not what you think." Marcus waved a hand. "It doesn't matter. Wolf isn't romantically involved with your wife. He's helping her start a business." That made Marcus look up. "What?" "The money Emily transferred. It wasn't going to Wolf. It was going into a business account for a graphic design firm she's launching. Wolf is her silent partner and investor. He's putting in $10 million to match her too." Marcus stared. "A business?" "She's calling it Hartwell Creative. Already has 3 major clients lined up, including 2 companies from Wolf's network. The launch is next month." A business. Emily was starting the design studio she'd always dreamed of, the dream she'd put aside to support Marcus's ambitions. And she'd had to go to his enemy for help, because her own husband had never asked what she wanted. "There's more," Jack continued. "The hospitalization. It wasn't complications from the pregnancy. Emily collapsed from exhaustion. She'd been working 18-hour days trying to build up her portfolio while also managing the pregnancy alone. The doctors said it was stress-induced. Stress from carrying their baby and building her dreams while Marcus spent his nights with Isabel." "Why are you telling me this?" Because I've worked for you for 5 years, Mr. Chen, and I've never seen you as miserable as you've been this week. And because I think you should know that Mrs. Chen never betrayed you. Not once. Everything she did honestly and legally, which is more than can be said for. He stopped himself. More than can be said for me, Marcus finished. Jack nodded. I should probably quit after saying that. You're not wrong. Marcus stood and walked to the window again. Emily's starting a business. Our daughter will be born in 2 months, and I won't be there for any of it. It doesn't have to be that way. Yes, it does. I made my choices. Now I have to live with the consequences. After Jack left, Marcus stood in his office alone, looking out at the city that had once seemed like everything. Now it looked like what it was: cold, empty, and completely meaningless without someone to share it with. He'd built his empire, and it had cost him everything that actually mattered. Marcus didn't go home that night, or the next. He stayed in his office, sleeping on the couch when exhaustion forced him, staring at his phone at all other times. He wanted to call Emily, wanted to apologize, to beg, to promise he'd be better. But he knew promises meant nothing now, only actions did. And he had no idea what actions could possibly make up for what he'd done. On Sunday morning, his mother called. Marcus, what's going on? Emily called me. Of course she had. Elena Chen loved Emily like the daughter she'd never had. Marcus had always suspected his mother liked his wife more than she liked him. We're getting divorced, Mom. Silence. Then, what did you do? Why do you assume it was me? Because I know my son, and I know Emily. That girl has the patience of a saint. What did you do? Marcus told her everything. The affair, the neglect, the fact that he hadn't even known about Emily's hospitalization or that they were having a daughter. His mother listened without interrupting. When he finished, the silence stretched so long he thought she'd hung up. Marcus, I raised you better than this. I know. Your father worked himself to death trying to provide for us. He missed so much of your childhood, and I watched it break both of you. I thought you learned from that. Marcus closed his eyes. His father had died of a heart attack when Marcus was 17, collapsing in his office after another 80-hour work week. I thought I was different, Marcus said. I thought building something great was honoring his sacrifice. Your father's greatest regret wasn't his business failures. It was missing your life. He told me that the night before he died, said he'd give everything he'd built for just one more day to spend with us. Marcus had never known that. Emily is filing for divorce, his mother continued. But the papers haven't been signed yet, have they? No, I have 30 days to respond. Then you have 30 days to become the man she fell in love with, the man I raised. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes? I don't even know where to start. Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it because it means giving up the life you think you want. She was right. Marcus knew exactly what he needed to do. He needed to let go of everything he'd been clinging to, the status, the affairs, the endless pursuit of more, and remember what he'd almost forgotten. That love wasn't something you fit into your schedule. It was what you built your schedule around. After he hung up with his mother, Marcus sat in his office and made a decision. He called Gerald Hastings. I want to accept all of Emily's terms, Marcus said, but I have some requests of my own. What kind of requests? I want to propose an alternative to supervised visitation. I want to attend every prenatal appointment from now until the birth. I want to be in the delivery room if Emily allows it, and I want to prove to her that I can be the father our daughter deserves. Marcus, that's admirable, but the legal terms. I'm not trying to change the divorce. If Emily wants to end our marriage, that's her right. I earned that. But our daughter didn't ask for any of this, and I won't let her pay for my mistakes. Gerald was quiet for a moment. You know this means completely restructuring your life. I know. Your board won't be happy if you step back from day-to-day operations. Then they'll have to deal with it. Isabel is already out of my life, completely. All right then, I'll draft a counter-proposal and send it to Emily's lawyer. But Marcus, this only works if you follow through, if you make these promises and then break them. I won't. You sound sure. I am. For the first time in a long time, I actually am. After ending the call, Marcus started making changes. He called his COO and told her she'd be taking over as acting CEO while he transitioned to a chairman role. She was shocked but capable. He'd been grooming her for leadership anyway. He called his real estate agent and put the penthouse on the market. He went through his phone and deleted every contact that represented the life he was leaving behind. Isabel's number, the exclusive clubs, the party promoters. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He went to church. The same church where he and Emily had gotten married. He sat in the back pew, remembering that day 5 years ago when Emily had walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, her smile brighter than any chandelier. He'd promised to love her, to cherish her, in sickness and health. He'd broken every single vow. "Can I help you, son?" Father Michael stood in the aisle, the same priest who'd married them. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "Can you help someone who's destroyed everything good in his life?" Father Michael sat beside him. That's usually when people need the most help. Marcus told him everything, not as a confession. He'd never been particularly religious, but as a way to say it all out loud, to face the full scope of his failures. Father Michael listened, and when Marcus finished, he said something unexpected. "You know what took the most courage today? Coming here, admitting all of this. Most people never get that far. It's not courage, it's desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing." The priest smiled gently. "Marcus, redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing differently from here forward. Every day, every moment, you get to choose again. What if it's too late? What if Emily never forgives me? Then you do the work anyway. Not to win her back, that's up to her. But because your daughter deserves a father who shows up, and because you deserve to become the man you're meant to be." Marcus sat with those words as Father Michael left him alone in the church. He deserved to become the man he was meant to be. Not the empire builder, not the CEO with the model girlfriend and the power lunches. The man who kept his promises, the man Emily had believed in. The father his daughter needed. He pulled out his phone and opened a new email to Emily. He typed and deleted a dozen different messages before finally settling on the truth. "Emily, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know I've broken every promise I made and destroyed your trust in ways I can never fully repair. But our daughter deserves better than what I've been, and I want to prove to you that I can be the father she needs, even if I can't be the husband you deserved. My lawyer is sending over a counter-proposal. I'm accepting all your terms for the divorce, but I'm asking for the chance to attend the prenatal appointments and be present for our daughter's birth. Not because I think it will change your mind about us, but because she should know her father tried to show up, even after failing so completely. I'm restructuring my entire life, stepping back from the company, ending everything that took me away from what mattered. Not to manipulate you or prove something, but because I finally understand what I should have known all along. None of it meant anything without you. I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure our daughter never doubts that she is loved." Marcus. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Then he drove to the brownstone. Emily's car was in the driveway. He sat outside for 20 minutes, trying to find the courage to knock on the door of his own house. Finally, he got out of the car and walked up the steps. He rang the doorbell. Emily opened the door, her eyes widening when she saw him. She was in yoga pants and one of his old Columbia sweatshirts, her belly round and perfect. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you, to talk if you'll let me." She hesitated, her hand on the door like she might close it. Then she sighed and stepped back. "Come in." The house felt different. Or maybe Marcus was different. Everything looked the same. The furniture they'd picked out together, the photos on the walls, the life they'd built. But he saw it all now through new eyes. This was home. This had always been home. And he'd treated it like a hotel. Emily led him to the kitchen and gestured to the table. "Do you want tea?" "Sure, thank you." He watched her move through the kitchen, her movements careful and deliberate with her pregnant belly. She was beautiful. How had he ever stopped seeing that? She set a cup in front of him and sat down across the table, her hands wrapped around her own mug. "I got your email," she said. "Already?" "I've been checking my phone obsessively for 3 days. Old habit." She took a sip of tea. "You're really stepping back from Chen Industries." "Yes, Laura will be taking over as CEO. I'll stay on as chairman, but in an advisory role only. No more 80-hour weeks. No more missing life for meetings." Emily studied his face. "Why now? Why not 6 months ago when I asked you to slow down?" Marcus met her eyes. "Because I'm an idiot who needed to lose everything before I understood what I had." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "At least you're honest about it." "I want to be honest about everything from now on. No more lies, no more excuses." "Is Isabel really gone?" "Yes, completely. I ended it the day you told me about the divorce. And if I said yes to you coming to the appointments, being at the birth, you wouldn't slip back into old patterns." Marcus wanted to promise that he wouldn't, to swear that he'd changed permanently. But he'd learned that promises meant nothing. "I don't know," he admitted. "I can tell you that I want to change, that I'm committed to being different. But I also know that talk is cheap. So instead of making promises, I'm just going to show up. Every appointment, every milestone, every moment I'm allowed to be part of our daughter's life." Emily's eyes glistened. "You know we're having a girl." "Jack told me. I'm sorry I didn't know before. I'm sorry I missed so much. I tried to tell you so many times, but you were always busy, always distracted." She wiped her eyes. "I stopped trying because it hurt too much when you didn't care." "I cared," Marcus said. "I just convinced myself that providing was the same as being present, that building an empire for our family meant something even if I was never there to enjoy it with you." "My father was like that," Emily said quietly. "Always working, always chasing the next success. My mother left him when I was 8. I swore I'd never repeat that pattern." Marcus hadn't known that. Another thing he'd never asked about, never cared to learn. "I became your father," he said. "You became my worst fear." She met his eyes. "That's why I'm divorcing you, Marcus. Not because I stopped loving you. I'm not sure I could even if I wanted to. But because I won't let our daughter grow up in a marriage where love isn't enough to make someone stay." The words hurt, but Marcus understood them. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved for your own well-being? How did you find the strength? Let us know below. "The next appointment is Tuesday," Emily said. 2 p.m., Dr. Rahman's office in Midtown. Marcus pulled out his phone and added it to his calendar, marking it as his highest priority. "I'll be there." "Don't promise if you're not sure." "I'm sure." He looked up from his phone. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but I will be there on Tuesday, and at every appointment after that. You can count on it." Emily nodded slowly. "Okay." They sat in silence for a moment, and Marcus worked up the courage to ask the question that had been eating at him. "Damien Wolf, he really was just helping you with the business?" "Yes. I know it probably seemed suspicious, but Damien's wife left him in a very similar way 5 years ago. He understood what I was going through, and when I needed capital and legal help, he offered both without judgment. Is there something between you two? Emily looked at him steadily. Would it matter if there was? The jealousy that flared in Marcus's chest was immediate and intense. Yes. Why, you had Isabel. That's different. How? Marcus struggled to articulate it. Because Isabel was a mistake, a symptom of me running away from reality, but you with someone else. That would be real. That would mean I'd really lost you. You did really lose me, Marcus. The papers. I know I did. But there's a difference between losing you to divorce and losing you to someone else who'd actually appreciate what they have. Emily's expression softened slightly. There's nothing romantic between Damien and me. He's been a friend and a mentor, but that's all. I'm not ready for anything more than that, and honestly, I don't know if I ever will be. The relief Marcus felt was overwhelming. Thank you for telling me. I didn't have to. You're not my husband anymore, not really. But I'm the father of your child, and I'd like to think I'm still someone you can be honest with. Emily looked down at her tea. I want to believe you've changed, I really do, but Marcus, you broke my heart completely, and I can't go through that again. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to understand that even if you show up to every appointment, even if you're the perfect father, we're still getting divorced. There's no going back to what we were. The words hit hard, but Marcus nodded. I understand. This isn't about winning you back. It's about being there for our daughter. Good, because she's all that matters now. Marcus stood to leave, but paused at the kitchen door. The nursery looks beautiful, by the way. I saw it on the security footage. Emily's expression hardened. You've been watching the cameras. I disabled them all this morning. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been monitoring you in the first place. No, you shouldn't have. She stood too, her hand on her belly. Marcus, if we're going to make any kind of co-parenting relationship work, you need to respect my privacy. No more cameras. No more checking up on me. No more private investigators. You're right, I'm sorry. Apologies need to come with changed behavior, not just words. I know, and I'm working on it. Tuesday, 2 p.m., I'll prove it then. As Marcus drove away from the brownstone, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not the hollow drive to acquire more, to build bigger, to win at all costs. But real purpose, the kind that came from showing up for the people you loved. He had 2 days to get his life in order before that appointment. He spent Monday meeting with his executive team, finalizing the transition of CEO duties to Laura. There were protests, board members who thought he was making a mistake, investors worried about the company's direction, but Marcus stood firm. Chen Industries will be fine, he told them. Better than fine. Laura is brilliant, and frankly, she's been running things behind the scenes for the last year anyway. This company doesn't need me in the day-to-day operations. But what will you do? One board member asked. Be a father, Marcus said simply, and learn to be a better man. He spent Monday night in the Brownstones' guest room. Emily had agreed to let him stay there rather than the penthouse, which felt like progress, working on the nursery. He assembled the crib that had been sitting in boxes for 3 weeks. He hung the mobile Emily had ordered. He organized the tiny clothes by size. At midnight, Emily found him sitting in the rocking chair, holding a onesie that said, Daddy's Girl. You don't have to do all this, she said softly. I want to. I should have done it months ago. She hesitated in the doorway, then came and sat in the other chair they'd bought for the nursery. I used to imagine us here together, reading to her before bed, rocking her to sleep, being a family. We can still be a family, just a different kind. Can we? Emily looked at him, and in the soft light from the nightlight shaped like a moon, he could see the hope and fear warring in her eyes. Can you really change, Marcus? Or will you be good for a few weeks and then slide back into who you were? I don't know, he admitted. But I'm going to try. Every day I'm going to wake up and try to be better than I was the day before. That's all anyone can do, I guess. They sat in silence, two people who'd loved each other and broken each other, surrounded by all the hopes they'd had for their future. Tuesday came. Marcus arrived at Dr. Rahman's office 30 minutes early, his heart pounding. He'd brought flowers, not expensive roses, but Emily's favorite sunflowers, and a folder with questions he'd researched about third trimester care. Emily arrived at 1:55, looking surprised to see him already there. "You came," she said. "I told you I would." She took the sunflowers with a small smile. "You remembered." "I'm trying to remember everything now." The appointment was revelatory. Dr. Rahman did an ultrasound and Marcus saw his daughter for the first time, really saw her, not just as an abstract concept but as a real person. She had Emily's nose. She was sucking her thumb. She was perfect. "She's beautiful," Marcus whispered, his eyes burning. Emily glanced at him and something in her expression shifted. Not forgiveness. It was too soon for that, but maybe the beginning of acceptance. Over the next 6 weeks, Marcus showed up to everything. Every appointment, every prenatal class. When Emily had a craving at 2 a.m. for Indian food, he drove to 3 different restaurants to find one that was open. He didn't ask for credit, didn't make a big deal of any of it, he just showed up. Emily started to relax around him. They'd talk during the appointments, share small jokes, fall into the comfortable rhythm they'd once had. But the divorce papers still sat unsigned on her lawyer's desk. When has someone's actions, not their words, finally convinced you they'd changed? Share your story of genuine transformation below. 3 days before Emily's due date, Marcus got a call at 3 a.m. "It's time," Emily said, her voice tight with pain. "My water broke." Marcus was out of the guest room and in the car within minutes, breaking every speed limit to get to the hospital. Emily met him in the parking lot, her overnight bag packed, her face pale but determined. "You made it," she said. "I'll always make it," Marcus replied. "Always." Labor was long. 23 hours of Emily gripping his hand, of Marcus coaching her breathing, of both of them terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. At 2:37 a.m. on a cold January morning, Sophia Elena Chen entered the world. 7 pounds 4 ounces, a full head of dark hair, her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. The nurses placed her in Emily's arms, and Marcus watched his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, look down at their daughter with such overwhelming love that he felt something in his chest crack open completely. "She's perfect," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Just like her mom," Marcus said. Emily looked up at him, and for the first time in months she didn't look away. The next few days were a blur of feedings and diaper changes and learning how to be parents. Marcus stayed at the hospital, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside Emily's bed, refusing to leave. On the 3rd day, as Marcus held Sophia while Emily showered, Damien Wolfe visited. "Congratulations," Damien said, looking at the baby with genuine warmth. "She's beautiful." "Thank you, and thank you for everything you've done for Emily, for helping her when I should have been there." Damien studied him. "You know, I really did hate you, Chen, for years. You beat me fair and square in that takeover, but I hated you anyway. And now I think you might actually be worthy of the family you almost lost." He paused. "Emily's launching Hartwell Creative next month. She's going to be brilliant. Don't you dare get in her way." "I won't. I'm going to support her dreams the way she always supported mine." Damien nodded and left, and Marcus returned his attention to Sophia, who was making little squeaking noises in her sleep. That evening, as Emily fed Sophia, she said quietly, "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About the divorce papers, about what's best for Sophia." Marcus's heart stopped. "Emily." "Let me finish." She adjusted Sophia in her arms. These past 6 weeks you've shown up for everything. You've been present, patient, helpful. You've been the man I fell in love with. I'm trying to be. I know, and I can see that it's real, that you've really changed. She looked up at him. But Marcus, I'm still scared. Scared that this is temporary. Scared that once the novelty wears off, you'll go back to choosing work over family. I won't. You don't know that. Neither of us does. Change is hard, and sustaining change is even harder. Marcus nodded, accepting the truth of it. So what do? We take it slow, we co-parent, we rebuild trust one day at a time. She paused. And we don't sign the divorce papers, not yet. Hope flared in Marcus's chest. Not yet. Not yet. But Marcus, this isn't me taking you back. This is me saying I'm willing to see if the man you've become can stay that man. If you can prove over months, not weeks, that this change is permanent. I will, I promise. He stopped himself. No, no more promises, just action. Emily smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Just action. Over the next 6 months, Marcus kept showing up. He learned to change diapers at 3 a.m. He discovered that singing off-key actually put Sophia to sleep faster than perfect lullabies. He took Emily on dates, real dates, where he put his phone away and just listened to her talk about her growing business. Hartwell Creative launched and immediately took off. Emily's talent, combined with Damien's network and investment, made her one of the most sought-after designers in New York. She glowed with the pride of building something that was hers. And Marcus supported her every step of the way. He'd watch Sophia when Emily had late client meetings. He'd celebrate her wins and help her solve her challenges. He became a partner, not a provider. Chen Industries thrived under Laura's leadership. The board eventually accepted that Marcus's decision to step back had been right. He stayed involved in strategic decisions, but left the day-to-day operations to others. His empire didn't crumble without him at the helm. It grew. And so did he. One evening in July, as they sat in the backyard of the brownstone watching Sophia play with Bubbles in her baby seat, Emily reached over and took Marcus's hand. I want to try again, she said. Marcus looked at her. Try what? Us, our marriage, for real this time. She squeezed his fingers. You've proven yourself, Marcus. Every single day for 6 months you've chosen us, chosen her, chosen to be better. I'll keep choosing you, Marcus said, every day for the rest of my life. I know, she smiled. That's why I'm ready to trust again. They remarried in September in the same church where they'd first made their vows. This time, Marcus understood what he was promising. This time, he meant every word. Father Michael performed the ceremony, and Sophia, now 8 months old, babbled happily from her grandmother Elena's arms as her parents pledged to love each other through everything. Damien Wolfe sat in the 3rd row, and Marcus caught his eye and nodded. The former rivals had become unlikely friends, bonded by their shared understanding that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. As Marcus and Emily kissed, sealing their second chance, he thought about how close he'd come to losing everything. He'd built an empire and nearly destroyed himself in the process. But he'd learned. Love wasn't something you fit into your schedule. It was what you built your schedule around. Success wasn't measured in dollars or deals. It was measured in moments, in midnight feedings and first smiles, in supporting your partner's dreams and showing up when it mattered. He'd almost lost the woman he loved and the daughter he'd never known he needed. But he'd found his way back. And this time, he'd never let go. 3 years later, as Marcus sat in Sophia's room reading her favorite bedtime story, Emily leaned against the doorframe watching them. Daddy again, Sophia demanded, her eyes bright. Again, Marcus pretended to groan. We've already read it 5 times. Again. Emily laughed. I'll make you a deal, Sophia. One more time, then sleep. Deal." "Deal," Sophia agreed solemnly. Marcus read the story one more time, doing all the voices that made Sophia giggle. When he finished, he tucked her in and kissed her forehead. "I love you to the moon and back," he said. "And to the stars and back," Sophia added their nightly refrain. "And to the stars and back," Marcus confirmed. He turned off the light and found Emily waiting in the hallway. She wrapped her arms around him. "You're a good dad," she said. "I'm trying to be." "You are," she kissed him. "And you know what? You're a pretty good husband, too." "Just pretty good." She laughed. "The best husband, happy." "Happier than I ever thought possible," Marcus said honestly. And it was true. He'd lost his empire and found his world. And he'd never been richer.